Do it.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Push it!
Well, everyone's favourite Buckethead and Troll doll have finally made their return to save Disney Plus numbers from dwindling, and also sadly still dragging Star Wars' name straight through the mud. The Mandalorian Season 2's pilot episode sadly wasn't very good, guys. I'm sorry, seriously, I don't have any vendetta against the show. To be perfectly honest, I was excited to see it return, and I was gritting during the intro to Season 2's opening episode, hoping that perhaps this season will feel like it has an actual through line this time, and not feel like a jumbled production that was most likely a Boba Fett movie repurposed and remarketed as an online television show, rather than a standalone feature-length film. Though, in Mandalorian's defense, jumbled productions are just textbook Kathleen Kennedy at this point. However, I will say I liked this episode vastly more than most of the episodes in Season 1. I want to take the time to give some genuine praise to this episode for what I think it did very well, and even some of the stuff that I liked but I thought was poorly executed. I saw genuine attempts to address some of the criticism for Season 1. Let's start with the runtime of the episode. A 53-minute opener instead of a 37-minute opener that wasted 10 of those minutes on escorting some blue alien douchebag and riding dinosaurs, instead of actually explaining stuff in the original Mandalorian pilot. Thank you, Disney, for extending the runtime. You actually now have time to flush things out a bit. Granted, I still think you could have done a much better job, but yes, keep the episodes this length, please. You have the budget, use it. And you're running it on your own streaming service. You can make each episode 10 hours if you want. Just make it good. Secondly, the premise of Season 2 is vastly more interesting than Season 1. Here's my big issue with Season 1. It didn't really go anywhere. Like, it had 3 filler episodes, which didn't really amount to much in terms of story, and as a result it felt piss poorly paced, and it wasn't very engaging for me. Granted, I understand they were trying to lay the foundation, but in all honesty, I kind of felt like Season 1 was a waste. It comes down to Bounty Hunter, who's also a Mandalorian, whatever that is, finds Baby Yoda for a reward, turns him into Empire Loyalist for a reward. He suddenly decides, despite taking the reward, to take back Baby Yoda and risk his life for a creature he hardly knows. He then trots about the galaxy for a couple of episodes, only to end up right back where he started and is told to find the Jedi. And that's it in terms of story. It's pretty much all we get. We still have no idea why the bad guys want Baby Yoda, or who the hell these Empire Loyalists are and how they were established and who's running the joint, and what their motivations are. However, Season 2 Episode 1 has Mando seeking out the Mandalorian Sleeper Network in order for them to set him on the right path to deliver Baby Yoda to the Jedi. Now we have a goal for the protagonist and a clear direction for Season 2 to go in with an exciting premise. Again, that alone has me more interested than Season 1. People were telling me that Baby Yoda was meant to be the hook to draw people into the story and keep people invested. People started asking me, like, why didn't Baby Yoda get you excited? Wasn't he an awesome twist? Didn't he draw you in? Why weren't you hyped for the next episode of The Mandalorian after the Baby Yoda twist? And I was just like, because he's a bloody stuffed animal, for goodness sake, and he has no context whatsoever and not even a name. Who honestly gives a shit? Like, here's what those people need to understand. I don't care about Baby Yoda until they give me a reason to care. Being cute is not enough. And while I have my issues with Baby Yoda, I care enough about Mando and the Star Wars universe to still be somewhat invested in this series. So as I said, the episode's runtime and the premise of Season 2 is good. Now let's talk other positives. I liked the opening to the episode where Mando goes into that mobster den and brutalizes those gang members for information. I thought it was entertaining. I liked the tone and the look of the world he was on. It did, however, piss me off that they didn't tell us what planet he was on yet again. I like how Mando actually took Baby Yoda with him, and he says that from now on, he's taking Baby Yoda wherever he goes. Now, originally I was annoyed at this, because I thought it was stupid to take an infant into a dangerous mob den. And yeah, it is, but if you think about it, how many times did Mando leave Baby Yoda on his ship unsupervised, only for his life to be repeatedly put in danger, or for Baby Yoda to just wander aimlessly out of his ship? The writers of The Mandalorian have essentially written themselves into a corner where Mando now has to always consider Baby Yoda a factor in whatever he does. Personally, I think bringing Baby Yoda with him is the lesser of evils, mainly because of what we've seen from Season 1 and what comes from leaving Baby Yoda on his ship. But Baby Yoda, however, is still a target, which is why I don't understand why he doesn't keep the hatch closed on Baby Yoda's floating crib, so no one knows what's inside, instead of having Baby Yoda out in the open for all to see. Anyway, yeah, the opening's pretty cool. It shows off Mando's more brutal bounty hunter nature, and it even rips off Arnie in the process.
But you must give me your word that you won't kill me.
I promise you will not die by my hand. Now where is the Mandalorian you know of?
Mando, you can't leave me like this!
That wasn't part of the deal.
Mando! Mando!
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
I like how it showed off how effective Beskar armor is in a fist fight, though it did bug me how some of those mobsters' henchmen didn't go for the blasters on the ground from the dead bodies. Mando is redirected to Tatooine, where he finds that woman he met in episode 5 of season 1, who fixed up his ship and took a liking to Baby Yoda. Another thing I appreciated from this episode is that it gave more purpose to the episode from season 1 that took place on Tatooine with that insufferable wannabe Han Solo. That was my most hated episode, but at least now it's not entirely pointless. However, it does in some ways make that episode even worse, and oh boy, we'll get to that. So Mando is trying to find another Mandalorian in hiding on Tatooine, and he's redirected to a place called Mos Pelgo. We get to see a pre-war geographical map of Tatooine and its 3 settlements. We aren't told which war exactly, presumably the Galactic Civil War between the Empire and the Rebels. Now, aside from homesteads and Jabba's palace, we are shown Tatooine has 3 major settlements: Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, and Mos Pelgo. I appreciated the writers trying to give the planet of Tatooine some more character, though admittedly, I think it's a bit weird that there's only 3 major settlements for an entire planet. They even go as far as to mention Mos Pelgo wasn't a spaceport like Eisley and Espa, but instead it was a mining settlement. The mechanic also mentions that Pelgo isn't on the map, and there hasn't been much word out of that area of the planet since the fall of the Empire, where things turned a bit chaotic with outlaws, bandits, and raiders trying to take advantage of Tatooine without fear of consequence from the occupation of the Empire, and apparently Mos Pelgo was hit the hardest. Now, since the map of Tatooine was pre-war, I still have no idea why Mos Pelgo wouldn't be on the map, since again it was pre-war. Also, Mando says it's no problem, he can just take his ship out that way and land at Mos Pelgo, but the woman tells him that wouldn't be wise since he will be easily spotted on approach. And this is why Mando decides to take the speeder bike he used in Season 1, Episode 5 to cross the Tatooine desert. Again, this is bizarre. In a discussion I had with some viewers on a now deleted episode of the channel's podcast, we brainstormed reasons for why it would be wise if Mando left his ship behind. And we came up with 2 reasons. 1, he's there searching for a Mandalorian who doesn't want to be found, so approaching in the ship might make the person he's trying to find panic and flee. 2, the mining settlement could be overrun with bandits, and approaching in the ship would draw too much hostile attention. Now, the problem we had is that it's piss poorly worded in the episode itself. As a matter of fact, there's no real reason given as to why Mando shouldn't take his ship. But we find out the real reason very soon. Now let me talk about the final bit of praise I want to give this episode. The title of Season 2, Episode 1, or Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian, is called The Marshal. And it's fitting because the character himself was undoubtedly the best part of this episode. And not just that, but everything surrounding the character as well, including his backstory, which showed how Mos Pelgo fell to bandits in the aftermath of Return of the Jedi, and how he acquired Boba Fett's armor from some Jawas, and the awesome casting reveal of Timothy Oliphant. Everything to do with the Marshal was handled very, very well. And it actually bolstered my enthusiasm going forward with the series, knowing there's another charismatic actor who's going to be playing a humble and badass side character that we might see again in episodes going forward. Literally nothing the Marshal did bothered me in this episode. There was only one issue I had, and that was to do with the flashback where Mos Pelgo falls to bandits. He says that everyone on Tatooine was celebrating the fall of the Empire because the occupation had been lifted. And I'm kind of confused by that, because as far as I know, Tatooine was run by the Hutts. So wouldn't Jabba's death have been the real lifting of the occupation, since he was running the show? I mean, granted, the Empire had an interest in Tatooine as well, but It's funny how they never mentioned Jabba's death, because I figured that would also be big news in Tatooine. I imagine it would have thrown Tatooine's economy for a loop. But let's not go down that road, because that's going to be a long one. Now we're going to talk about some of the more blatant major problems this episode had. The first being Mando himself, because once again, Disney has no idea what they want Mando to be. In the opening, we see he's a ruthless man when it comes to getting what he wants, and he's capable of brutal vendettas, even when he has nothing to really gain from it. When Mando first comes across the Marshal, he's ready to blow his head off to take back Boba Fett's Mandalorian armor. Now, the whole Boba Fett being a Mandalorian is a whole other can of worms that I really don't care to go into. But Mando is extremely hostile towards the Marshal when they first meet. He's ready to kill him in the blink of an eye. Then Mos Pelgo is attacked by, of all things, a crate dragon monster. Out of nowhere. Apparently the crate dragon has been terrorizing Mos Pelgo for quite some time. And so the Marshal tells Mando that if he agrees to help him slay the monster, he will give Mando the Boba Fett armor in exchange. And then Mando agrees. He doesn't even have to think about it. He just agrees. No problem. Mando is gonna just risk his life for people he doesn't know to fight against a giant monster that is almost guaranteed to kill him in a one-on-one fight. But because the creative team need for him to be the hero, a man of the people, they need to show him doing heroic things. When in actuality, he's just a bounty hunter who follows a creed that is willing to stop at nothing to achieve his goals in the most timely and efficient manner possible. Opting to fight a crate dragon is the complete opposite of that. The ruthless Mando we saw in the opening of this episode would have wasted the Marshal right there and then, and took the armor and continued searching for the Mandalorian sleeper network. And that's the biggest problem I have with the Mandalorian show. The protagonist, who the hell is he? He changes his character at the drop of a hat to whatever Disney needs him to be, even when it defies any and all logic. It's one of the reasons so many people had trouble buying the relationship with Mando and Baby Yoda, because he goes from ruthless bounty hunter to attentive father figure so quickly it's completely jarring to the audience. And now once again he's becoming a man of the people when he doesn't have to, and despite it completely hindering his goals and putting his life at great risk. Anyway, that's not all. The biggest problem with this episode that I'm sure everyone can agree on, who would have thought that Disney could have ruined the Tusken Raiders, of all things? Mindless, faceless, sand people savages, and Disney couldn't even get them right. How? Okay, maybe ruined isn't the best term to use, since I do like how they were used in the end battle with the Crate Dragon, but there's just so much wrong with Mando speaking their language, the language of savages, mind you, and the Tusken Raiders willing to negotiate and make formal agreements and truces with the Mos Pelgo settlers. That flies in the face of so much Star Wars history. Centuries, in fact. And what Tatooine and the Tusken Raiders have been established as. Now, they did do the legwork for Mando here. Mando said he'd spent a lot of time on Tatooine, so it's not unfeasible to think that he would have had enough time to learn some of the language. It's weird he wouldn't know what the hell Mos Pelgo is, but he knows the Tusken Raider language. Point is, he's been there before. I've got no problem with him learning languages. The problem is that there shouldn't be a language for him to learn in the first place. In this instance, the Tusken Raiders language. And the fact that Mando knows the language, but the Tatooine locals do not, and the locals for the past however many centuries still allow themselves to be put in danger by these savages when they could have just reasoned with them this whole time. It blows my mind why Disney didn't think of this. Did you not think of the repercussions of allowing an outsider bounty hunter to communicate with Tatooine's most ruthless savages, nomads who want no part of civilization and who only exist to raid, murder, and torture everyone that's not them? This also makes Anakin slaughtering the Tusken Raiders look like an even more heinous act than it already was, because it shows the Tuskens have the potential to be civilized and to communicate and barter. He could have bartered for his mother back. Upon their refusal, he could have wasted them with his lightsaber. People are going to say Anakin didn't know the language, but that's precisely the point. If Mando learnt it, that means the Lars family should have known it. That means Jabba the Hutt and his crime organization should have known it. Jabba the Hutt could have told them, don't mess up my pod race in episode 1, or I'm going to purge your entire village for screwing with my business. And hell, even 9-year-old Anakin could speak fluent alien languages, as well as English. And with all that said, Tatooine would have figured out a way to make peace with the Tuskens, some way, somehow, if they could have been reasoned with, which would have avoided centuries of murder, bloodshed, raiding, thievery, and economic complications. And now we are seeing them just communicate civilly with an outsider who's not even a Tatooine native, who is armed to the brim, so I don't know how that initial conversation would have taken place. I'm pretty sure they would have just had a skirmish and people would have died. Now, admittedly, Season 1, Episode 5 is the episode that screwed this up by allowing Mando to communicate through sign language, but Season 2, Episode 1, they just made it 10 times worse. And that's not even bringing up the fact that Mando can somehow talk to the savage Tusken Raider dogs. Seriously, get fucked, Disney. Anyway, before we talk about the final battle with the Krayt Dragon, let's talk about Mando's missing ship. Remember when I said it wasn't clear on why Mando shouldn't fly his ship to Mos Pelgo? Well, it becomes clear because Mando opts to use his ship and its blaster cannons to easily kill the Krayt Dragon. But we can't have that, so the Marshal tells Mando the vibration from the ship's engines will scare the beast and it will never surface. Mando, in typical Mando fashion, is just like, yeah, whatever. And thus, we got the final battle with the Tusken Raiders. The problem with this is that if you were going to fight a Krayt Dragon, and your ship is the most effective weapon you have, you would absolutely find a way to use it. But if we have the ship, then the final battle has no tension because Mando and Baby Yoda won't be in danger, and he won't be able to get crushed by Jaws and zap his way out. We will get to that. But yeah, that's why the plot required Mando leave his ship behind, and it was the plot that dictated Mando not use his flying trump card. Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Kathleen Kennedy wanted their Tusken Raider alliance team up at the end of the episode, and this is the only way they could have it. And like it or not, Mando could have perched his ship on one of the mountains overlooking the entrance to the Krayt Dragon's cave, baiting it out with a bantha like they were shown to do, and then when the Krayt Dragon emerged to take the bait, he could have just shot the shit out of it. Or during the midst of the raging battle that we actually did get, he could have used his ship as a last resort, if they wanted to try and use the minefield plan first. Anyway, let's talk about the battle. To be perfectly honest, I thought it was mostly good. Granted, I don't like the Tusken Raiders teaming up with the Mos Pelgo settlers, but at the very least, the Tusken Raiders were shown to be competent fighters. They used ballistas with harpoons, showing that they are used to fighting large creatures. Rancors come to mind, since we know this is Tatooine after all. This also goes for the banthas they ride and probably hunt for food. And then, obviously, there's the Krayt Dragon. Mando and the Marshal teaming up was pretty cool, although when the Krayt Dragon tries to retreat, they both use their jetpacks to give chase, and then they were trying to shoot it up close, and while they were doing this, it's like they were actively trying not to shoot it in the eye, where it would have actually done some damage. That was really frustrating to watch. Also, the final part of the fight was when Mando finds a bantha that has been wrapped in heavy explosives and is just sitting there. Okay. For some reason, that bantha is just sitting there with all these explosives. Now, I don't know why they have so many explosives left, let alone strapped to this bantha. Shouldn't they have used all of their explosives in the initial bombardment when they were trying to kill the Krayt Dragon? Anyway, and then the Marshal gets the monster's attention by using Boba Fett's RPG launcher. Mando gets swallowed with the bantha covered in bombs. He should be absolutely dead, but in a display of lunacy that still naively I didn't think Disney was capable of, Mando zaps his way out of the mouth with a taser prod, and then he detonates the explosives once he's free on the swallowed bantha that blows up the Krayt Dragon. Not gonna lie, I was pretty much on board with that final battle, right up until that happened. That ludicrous WTF moment just about killed the rest of my enthusiasm. Anyway, the Marshal gives Mando the armor. As promised, the two go their separate ways, and as Mando rides away in the Tatooine desert, we see a mysterious individual watching him go by, and it turns out to be Boba Fett himself, who survived the Sarlacc pit, and is alive and well. Now, for some, this was a massive twist, and maybe it was supposed to be, but Disney leaked this months ago. So my response to seeing Boba Fett was about what you see here. However, I gotta say it was great to see my boy Tamara Morrison back. He's an OG for sure. Loved him as Jango Fett. He's a charismatic actor and a very good voice actor. Praise his work on Battlefront 2 2005. But there's a reason why I wasn't excited the same way I was when Timothy Oliphant was revealed on screen. It's because Timothy Oliphant was actually a well-kept secret, and Tamira Morrison's Boba Fett twist was spoiled due to Disney's need to draw even more publicity to their product. As for the canon issues Boba Fett presents by being alive and well after Return of the Jedi, I honestly don't blame Disney for that, or the Mandalorian show for that matter. That was a problem long before George Lucas even sold Star Wars. Look, retcons suck, okay? But depending on how severe they are, I approach them like this. Yes, that was bad. Yes, it's going to tarnish everything writing related to that retcon going forward. But it's a blemish on what could actually turn out to be something good. For example, Ahsoka Tano is a retcon. I certainly found it ridiculous at first that Anakin Skywalker could have a Padawan learner so young and during the time frame of the Clone Wars, which took place over about 3 years. But having actually watched a substantial amount of the Clone Wars, while Ahsoka has a blemish on her record, she has brought in a ton of quality into the Star Wars universe. She's an awesome character and provides extra layers of depth for surrounding characters, namely Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Jedi Master Plo Koon. I'm choosing to look at the Boba Fett situation in The Mandalorian in a similar way. Yes, Boba Fett is a retcon. Yes, it's a blemish. But on the flip side, let's be perfectly honest, Boba Fett was never that important to begin with. He was actually just a glorified, overhyped paperweight, to be perfectly honest. He was almost entirely inconsequential to the original trilogy. And it was actually George Lucas's regime that retconned his death, not Disney. So, let's wait and see what Disney does with it. And let's just hope it leads to something good. So those are my thoughts on the opening episode to The Mandalorian Season 2. All in all, not a good episode, but in my opinion, a substantial improvement to several episodes in Season 1. I saw genuine attempts to flesh out the universe and improve the product, and I'm actually interested to see where things go. Going forward though, I hope they actually think about the domino effect of changing fixed pieces and factions in the Star Wars universe, because right now, looking from the outside in, it seems like Disney's Mandalorian creative team are kids playing around with a loaded gun and they don't know what the hell they're doing. But then again, it's nothing new from Disney. And hopefully they pick a clear direction for the protagonist, cut their losses, and start giving him some goddamn consistency. Anyway guys, thanks for watching this breakdown of The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This brings us to the end of the video. If you have time, consider staying for the outro. Thank you. Firstly, I want to give a shout out to all of my patrons and YouTube members for all of your contributions to the channel. I greatly appreciate the generosity and your support. If you'd like to become a patron or a channel member, the link to Patreon is in the description, or you can just press the join button and become a channel member that way. Secondly, if you haven't already, please check out the channel's Discord server. What Discord basically is an online community where followers of the channel go to congregate and talk about a range of different topics, ranging from Star Wars to Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and so on. Check it out at your leisure, and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. I've also linked a video about Discord in the description in case you had any questions. Also, if you'd like to support the channel in other ways, you can check out the channel's merchandise store where you can pick up some sick new threads and wear your colors proud. More designs are on the way, so I'll keep you posted. Also, if you're looking for more content, you should head over to my secondary channel that talks about video games, and my archive channel if you're a fan of the channel's podcast. Both are linked below. And finally, here's one last thank you for staying to the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.